Good evening, everyone. I'm LaDawn Davis. Thanks so much for tuning in. Topping the news tonight, the economic climate once again the focus as the government prepares for a second week of debate. With just hours away from another House session, Prime Minister of the Right Honorable Perry Christie spoke to the impacts of the current situation on many Bahamians. Worshipping with members at the Mount Pleasant Green Baptist Church on this Palm Sunday, Prime Minister Christie informed the congregation of his government's commitment to put the country's financial affairs in order. Noting the current budget restraints and the challenges with creating new employment, Mr. Christie said prudent measures must be applied.
We must be very careful with how we rationalize the monies our country earns. Right now, we're still trying to make as much money as we spend. You will hear me say in the next few days that we have taken it from over 500 million, spending 500 million more than we earn, to now about 141 million and counting. So we're headed in the right way.
The Prime Minister has pointed out in his mid-year budget presentation that the government will continue to create new employment measures. While he notes that the government is striving to become more efficient in the allocation and use of public resources, he told today's congregation that the government must do what it can to ease the economic burden being placed on many across this country.
How really much we believe in that verse that says, "What you do for the least of my brethren, you do for me." And how does the country, the government, reflect that reality? That there are people who are under enormous challenge, bewildered, mothers who don't know what to do and who to turn to. And the question is, who should say that we must not use the revenue of the country to fix that problem for them?
Bahamians, like millions around the world, took part in church services today to mark Palm Sunday. Just prior to service, many residents marched throughout the streets in remembrance of the arrival of Jesus into Jerusalem. The day is referred to as Palm Sunday as the people of Jerusalem threw palm leaves to greet Jesus on his arrival. Today it is commemorated with a procession and with residents carrying palm branches. The congregation at the Annex Baptist Church among those leading a march from Windsor Park to the church. Well, the church continues to have a voice on a wide range of issues in the country, among them the gender equality bills. Those bills are expected to go to the Bahamian public in a referendum in the coming weeks. The national overseer of the Church of God Bahamas, Bishop Moses Johnson, says while he is on the borderline, he plans to vote yes to 3 of those 4 gender equality bills.
As far as I'm concerned, Bill number 1, Bill number 2, Bill number 3, not a problem. Bill number 4, problem. I understand that they want to change the word sex, but they cannot guarantee me that 20 years from now it will have the same meaning. And my job as a minister is maintain the sanctity of marriage. I feel that it is a very subtle way of getting the Privy Council to interpret for us what they think sex means. As far as I'm concerned, sex is whether you're born man or born a woman.
Bishop Johnson says the insertion of the word sex in the 4th gender equality bill in the Constitution should be either reworded or changed.
Equality is very important. The Matrimonial Act can be changed with a stroke of the pen by Parliament. The referendum must be changed by the people. We must be very, very careful how we change our referendum, because as far as murder is concerned, the Privy Council said that they interpret the death penalty to be the worst of the worst. As far as I was concerned, death was death. If you take somebody's life, there was a penalty. Now the Privy Council decided it's inhumane. The human rights people, they decide it's inhumane. Our Constitution can only be changed by the people. It is my conviction that Bill number 4 needs a little bit more work.
Meantime, the Bahamas Insurance Association is also concerned about what it labels the broad provisions of the draft National Health Insurance Bill, mainly because they say the bill amends certain parts of the Data Protection, Privacy of Personal Information Act to expand the use of personal information and for that information to be required for purposes of the implementation and management of national health insurance and determining the eligibility and benefits. Former chairperson and committee member for BIA, Tina Cambridge, explains their concern.
We see that it's broadening the scope of what and I use the terms that are in the bill. The NHI authority will be able to demand information. We don't know, if there are checks and balances around who will be able to get that information, who will see that information, who will hold that information. But when you're talking about a platform that's going to have a number of stakeholders feeding what essentially is people's private information, we want to be sure as a country that all of the securities around that are built in. And from what we see currently in this draft bill, there are some real concerns about that.
Cambridge said the association has lots of concerns regarding the draft legislation. One of them is the absence of regulation to view at the same time as the draft legislation is assessed.
It's very difficult to review and speak to this bill in absence of the regulations. At the moment, there are many terms within the bill that refer to the regulations. Well, if we don't have the regulations, how do we speak effectively and comment on that particular aspect of the bill? Because from what we see, a lot of the detail around how this is to function will be in the regulations. Well, if there's no regulations to review at the moment, how do you then really effectively comment on what is actually in the draft bill?
Also in news this Sunday, police are probing the death of an American visitor diving here in the capital. According to reports, shortly after 10 a.m., an American man from New York was on a diving trip with a group of persons in waters off Stewart's Cove in western New Providence when the man became unconscious. Despite extensive CPR efforts, the man was pronounced dead by a medical doctor. An autopsy will be performed to determine the exact cause of death. The identity of the man is being withheld pending notification of family members. Those Haitian migrants who were apprehended in Farmers Key, Exuma, are now here in the capital. The group arrived at the Coral Harbor Defense Force base last night on board the HMBS P-44. The 46 migrants include 36 men, 7 females, and 3 children. They were discovered on board a wooden sailing vessel. They are now in the care of the Bahamas Immigration Department for further processing. A group of Cuban nationals also discovered this weekend. One female is among the group of 18 Cubans found on Cape Lobos, which is located just over 100 miles west of the Ragged Island chain. Their vessel, which had apparently sprung a leak, was also found beached nearby. A statement from the Royal Bahamas Defense Force says the Cuban migrants all appeared to be in good health. They were placed on board the HMBS Durwood Knowles and transported to Ragged Island. The migrants have since been turned over to the Department of Immigration for further processing and transportation to the capital. And coming up, a group of high school students putting on a special show for a worthy cause.
Janae, and Janae. By the idea, I thought this was absolutely wonderful.